Hello guys, we're going to continue with the Linkcraft rank guide. So we already did ranks I through X, and now we're going to do, I think, just XI in this episode because the ranks are getting longer and longer now, so we'll get started with it. How we talk about the map layout, first you have, I think this is called like the parking lot or like outside or something, and then after you do outside, you go to market, which is like this is like the main difficulty of the map. It's this whole like general area. Once you do market, you're on to Ferris, which is obviously short for Ferris wheel, right? And then you have cliff 1, cliff 2, and you have like the transition between those two cliffs, and then you have sky and you go to the end, right? So generally it's just a lot of failsafe sections with this one green transition in the middle that is like the main LD part of the map plus sky, right? So we'll start with outside. With outside, this area is mostly easy, but it does have a couple hard jumps. For this, probably do force momentum with like a strafe 2 ticks after jumping, something like that. Or if you face out more, then you could do a 1 tick strafe. That's what you want to do there. Just jam that. I guess there's a ceiling right there, so you might bonk your head and it'll be a higher jump. Okay, and this part's relatively easy. Paint ups, just gonna face out, like, I think it's, I did some experimenting. The angle you wanna face is about 37 for X facing. That's where it's about guaranteed that, even if you get A7 head hitter, that you'll not hit it. So that's about the angle that, that I would recommend is 37. And then for Z facing, of course, you can do literally anything, about 45 degrees, or slightly inward is probably better. Okay, so we have our first main difficulty jump. This is an extended Cairo pane, and it's X facing. So there are a few strategies here. The first one that you can try, all of them, you're pretty much going to start here, and you can like run off the block. But it's the difference in what timing you do. So the first one, if you go to 0.1 on this upper block on the x-axis, and then face 177, and then I think is it 1 unshift? No, you just run off. Okay, so if you just run off from the front here, and then strafe 1 tick after jumping, you can see that it makes it without even turning. So then what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to turn at the end. So I'm tapping space on the pane, I'm strafing with A 1 tick later after I jump off the pane, and then I'm turning in at the end just to make sure that I can land on this block. If you don't like strafing 1 tick after jumping, because you know maybe you prefer a different timing, there's a similar one but with a different timing, which is if you do 0.8x on the front of this block, face 174, 1 unshift tap back, 1 shift tap back, and then practice. This is the same thing except you strafe, the angle is kind of precise here. You have to face like slightly more out. It's the same thing except now you strafe on the tick that you jump, and you can see it's still no turn, but you have to turn in at the end. For this one, I would probably recommend facing out slightly more than 174, just because it gives you more room when you're passing this corner, because you don't want to turn in too early and then hit this corner right here, right? So that's why I recommend having an angle that's more outward, but just make sure you focus on turning in late. And then you can either stop on the pane by shifting. Oh gosh, I can't get the time. You can either stop on the pane by shifting, or what I like to do is I like to chain it and just hold space all the way across here. So those are the couple things you can do there. You can either head hitter this or run back. Probably run back is better, just so you can get multiple timings. There's a ladder there. Just force momentum, do some strafe. It's not too precise. Do Pessy here. This just force momentum slightly outward. This also just force momentum. If you want like something you don't have to turn, then probably start like here and do like a few taps and force momentum. You can do it without turning. And then that's all of outside or parking lot or whatever you want to call this. And then you're on to market, which is the, I think a lot of people think this is like the hardest part of the map. So cross Neo, remember you can either do head hitter or you can do x.2 face 43, or sorry, 47 in this case, and 1 or 2 tick, both work there. This water's a little awkward. This first one's not too bad, you just bounce at the right height. This one, it has a nice strategy that I just discovered like a few minutes ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. Because this on its own is kind of precise of a timing. What you can do is if you go under this block, and then you have to get like a kind of precise z coordinate, you need to get like to exactly z.7, which is like the very end of this block. You don't want to be inward, you want to be as far like leftward as you can go. That was slightly too far, but you want to be like basically at the end of the block. And then if you face straight, hold sprint, and then add W, then it just does it for you. So you don't even have to time anything basically. So that's the strategy there. And then for here, go to this corner. I don't remember what the angle was. It was like 132. No, sorry, it's like 130. Maybe it's 131. Yeah, if you go to 131 from this corner and semi head hitter, then it'll bounce onto the fence for you. And then this part's fail safe because there's a ladder right here that you can climb up. So just head hitter this or run back. For this, go to point, I think it's 0.0. You know what, why don't I check? For this, you're going to do 0.0141 against this like wood. 0.0 face 141, hold sprint and then just add W. And then just release space once you exit the water, and then you don't have to turn or anything. That's the strategy for that. For this, probably just do 3 shift taps back and then head hitter timing. But if you don't like head hitter timing, you can also do face 86, 4 taps backward, and then 4 tick. So that's like another strategy. And then you can also probably find some other tick timing setup if you prefer a different one. For this, it might look a little scary that, because it's +1, like it looks like you have to do something like this where you have to grab the ladder. You actually land on top of the ladder. I think if you go from 0.1 and you head hitter, you can land on top of the ladder, so then you don't have to worry about any weird turn-ins. For this, you can do a bunch of stuff here. One setup I like to use is if I line up with this wall and then go against the birch here and then head hitter, then it lines up and you just tap space everywhere. And for your paint ups, you face 45, semi head hitter. For this, of course, you can head hitter, but you don't really want a head hitter. One setup you can use is you could run back as well, but one setup you could use is if you do 0.79 on X on the back, face 5, 3 shift taps. And then the nice thing about the setup is you can do anything between 3 and 5 tick. All of them can still make it. So that's nice. And then for this, you can semi head hitter. You don't have to do any ticks or anything. You face 45 for your paint ups. That one's not too bad. This one, again, it's 37. It's the recommended angle. For this, go on top of here and then scoot back a bit, so somewhere like here, and then face 29, I think. And then you can do semi head hitter from here, and both of them just make it to the soul sand. Okay, just semi head hitter off the front of this. Face 37, semi head hitter. For this, you can do semi head hitter, but it's just kind of precise. I didn't like doing this when I played this map. You could also head hitter, and it would just avoid that issue entirely. But you can also use, if you get a 0.37 and face, I think 43. 0.37 face 43, and then you can do 1 or 2 tick. So that just gives you a bit more leniency. Just do 1 shift tap and go here. Just be careful because sometimes you bonk your head when you're landing here and sometimes you don't. So it might be a little weird. For this, do 3 shift taps, and then you can do 4 tick. You can even do 3 tick or 2 tick, and all of them you can still grab it. Just aim for some of the later timings because they're easier, of course. Ladder +2, face 150, semi-head hitter with a 1 tick strafe. For this, you don't have to go to there. You can go straight to this yellow wool, and it's actually multi-tick. So if you do 0.52, face 174.5, let's see if this works, then you can see that I can get either 5 tick or 4 tick, and I don't have to turn. So it's just like a lenient skip, so you don't have to deal with that X facing corner. For this Z1, semi-head hitter, X facing, 2 taps back, semi-head hitter. Same thing, rinse and repeat. Cool. And then we just have a few more jumps of market left before we're on to Ferris. This one's a little awkward just because the corner's X facing. You could do some force momentum with like a turn in, like a pre-turn of some kind. I just don't like that because the X facing corner is kind of awkward. I would prefer something like this, which I think there's a multi-tick of some kind if you get the right angle, but I don't have coordinates. There you go. So if you do, what is that, 0.53 face 140, then you can do 5 tick or 6 tick, and both of them can get to the ladder. Just 6 tick is easier, of course. For this, you don't have to do like 3 shift taps and 4 tick here. You can if you want, but you can also do force momentum while holding space. And even if you get A7 force momentum, then you can still do it. So that just avoids the tick timing there. For this, this jump's easy, but it's this one where you would have to do a force tick if you just run it. If you want to avoid the force tick, then you can chain from here. You would do some sort of force momentum with pre-turn. I don't like strafing it like this, but you can. You would turn before jumping, right? Because if you turn after jumping, then you're not going to get nearly far enough, right? So you do some nice pre-turn like that. If you need to, you'll run 1 tick, but it's relatively lenient, but you can mess around with that. If not, you can always do 3 shift taps and 4 tick, and then that'll still make it. For this one, face 93, 1 shift tap and force momentum. Oh, sorry, that's not the right angle. It might be 95. 96? Okay, face 96 is good. And 1 shift tap and force momentum. And then it's pretty lenient. You can do basically any strafe timing there. Be careful of these fences, but it is pretty easy. You just have to be careful because this is an X corner, so make sure you're taking it kind of wide. This is multi-tick, so that's not too much of a concern. It's mostly chain this though, do 5 tick or 6 tick and hold space, because if you just go from here, I think 5 tick, oh no, never mind. Okay, you don't have to chain it. If you just go from here, you can do 6 tick or 5 tick, so it's multi-tick, not too precise. And then you fall down here, and then this is the last jump. I've actually seen people fail this before, even though this is like literally the last jump, and it's really not that bad. If you're like freaking out about this jump, you can Pessy from here, and that's just like extra insurance to make sure that you definitely make it. But yeah, it's not too precise. So, and now you're on to Ferris. So we're done with like the hardest part of the map, luckily. For the ice, do literally whatever you want here. I mean, literally whatever you want. You know, you're free. 37 semi-head hitter. For this, face like 135 semi-head hitter with strafing with a 1 tick after jumping and turn in. And then just turn out again afterwards so that you can grab the ladder. For this one's kind of precise. Face 37 and head hitter. And then you can do basically any strafe. Earlier strafe is better, but you can do like a 4 tick strafe and it'll still make it. You just have to turn in more in that case. For this cross neo, just find random jam coordinates. So something like this would be good. Vines, you're going to do your normal ladder slide strat where you drop down and then strafe after you pass the wall. One thing to keep in mind for vines, whenever you're shifting and you're holding like W and A, let's see, because you would think you would do it like this, which you can, but I would recommend to do this like this with W and A, because it's like a 45 strafe. You get like it's like a 40% speed boost compared to otherwise whenever you're shifting with at a 45-degree angle. So I would recommend to do it like that instead of doing it straight. But the general idea is hold shift at the top, hit W and A for a few ticks, and then release shift after a few ticks, like that. For this, it's just 7 block momentum, so you just 2 tick from the back. And you can do a shift tap there if you want, but you don't need to because it's not that precise. We actually have a skip coming up ahead, which is pretty nice because I think it's like the first like major skip we've had. So first thing, to get out of the ceiling, there are actually PESI setups. We want to get to this pane, right? There are PESI setups to get out of ceilings even when it's like weird like this. One you can do is if you face 170 and then do an unshift tap with D, practice, you can do 1-tick PESI or 2-tick PESI. And both of them, or sorry, you can even do 3-tick PESI, so you can do a few of them. Just make sure you don't sprint because you might get like too much speed, or if you do, just practice it so that you know what to do there. And then instead of going the intended way, we're gonna go to right here. There's a spot there. I think you can probably find, like, if you just run from here, or maybe you can jam. No? Okay, wait, maybe you can, let's see. I just want to find something multi-tick, right? So maybe 3 shift taps, and then, okay, maybe 1 shift tap. Let's see. Okay, 1 shift tap, and you can do 2 or 3 tick. And then that's multi-tick, so that both of them get into this gap. And then there are barriers here, so you know you're safe. Or sorry, wait, you don't even need to. I guess you could jump all the way over here as well. All of this, and then you're gonna climb up here, and then just head hitter here, and then you're gonna skip basically all of the parkour over there. So we're gonna jump straight to here, and then to get on this block, you're gonna use a PESI setup again. I would say just find something random like, something like that. Just make sure multiple PESI timings work. You can also, if you're trying to go quickly, you could do something like that and just do a normal PESI and just turn, you know. So you have a few options, but we skipped like that whole section, so that's what's nice there. We have a little transition. We're just going to do the normal setup for 1 block of momentum diagonal. And then we're down to here. And then this is, I think they call this mini cliff. It's like really short. There's like nothing in this part. It's not too difficult. You can either head hitter from the front, or you can not shift off like that. You can force momentum and then just slow down because you might overjump. You can head hitter out of this. There's also, if you don't want a head hitter, I wouldn't really recommend this, but you can face 174.5 and then, oh sorry, 175.5. Nope, that's not right either. 175. There you go. Okay, there's some angle. It's probably 174. It's probably. Is that good? No. Okay, there you go. 174.8, and then you can do multiple PESI timings, and you can hold space and then just turn out at the end. It's just kind of a really weird turn timing, so I wouldn't recommend it. But if you want to use that, you can. And then I'm sure you could also find, I don't know one off the top of my head, but I'm sure you could also find like some PESI for this as well. Maybe like jam something. You can probably find some PESI here. I would probably just head hitter this and then head hitter this because the section is so short, it basically doesn't even matter. And then just semi head hitter this, remembering that on the edge of the ice, soul sand, you don't get its effects, so you can just do it like a normal iron barneo. Face 130, sorry, face 30, semi head hitter. Then you're gonna go down here. From here, this is a chain. You do 5 tick from the back and just hold space. Don't do any taps. You can technically, if you want to avoid the tick, technically it's possible to chain like this, and then there's something there. But I wouldn't really recommend it, just 'cause it's kind of janky. And again, the section is so short, it doesn't really matter. So once you do that, you're on to cliff 1. You can start here, but I would always just do the skip. It doesn't really skip much, but you can just go straight to the water. We have a few long jumps here. This is a 4x1, right? Because it's 4 blocks, then there's a 1 block gap this way. So 2 ways you could do this. You could do start like near the left here, 3 shift taps and 5 tick. Or what I like to do when I played this map is I like to run from here and get some momentum. And you can find an exact setup if you want like a specific tick timing, but I would just kind of wing it. That's what I preferred to do. And then I have a bit more sky parkour. So there's a ladder on the other side here. So you're just going to do the same strategy from earlier. You're just going to do force momentum, some sort of 2 tick strafe. If it's about 8 degrees outward is probably good. So yeah, then you can go to this pane and then go there. But you can also, if you want to feel cool, you can go straight to that block because it's just this is just 3+1. This isn't precise. This, just Pessy this. And then from here, you have like a weird water jump. Don't do any, or sorry, I think you do a shift tap. Oh no, you don't, okay. So go from the back, Pessy, and just hold space. And then that'll work. And then you can also do 2 tick Pessy, but you can't do 3 tick Pessy because it just falls through the water, so just keep that in mind. But you do get 2 ticks of leniency with the timing, so it's consistent. This is a double knee-up, but you'll notice that this snow is lower. This is actually a tier lower than a true double knee-up, so it's, if you don't know what that means, that just means it's less precise than a double knee-up. So for this, I would just get random jam chords, honestly, so maybe I'll guess that these chords work. Oh, that was a good guess. Then maybe I'll shift forward a bit more. There you go. So these coordinates are probably good. You just do jam from here. That would be 0.14, 0.09, 176.5, and jam and turn in. And then if you want, you could also strafe instead. Let me try and get back to those coordinates. There you go. You could also just strafe instead, just because it's not very precise. You have the leniency to strafe instead of turn, even though there's a distance. And then just be careful because this like ladder is like awkward, but you can go straight to this water if you want. It's just 1 or 2 tick. Alternatively, you can do this ladder +2, face 150, semi-head hitter. Don't go from this daylight sensor because, oh, never mind that. I thought that fell through. Okay, all right, you can just go to here. And then do be mindful because this is what we call a positive Z water, which means that if occasionally when you try to see like that, see I'm not bouncing all of the time when I exit out this end, which is like atypical basically. So if you want to avoid that, even it's kind of rare, but you want to try to bounce out of the top of the water rather than out of the edge, and that kind of ensures that you don't get that issue. And if you want to avoid it entirely, I think you can also find a run strategy from here, and that'll avoid any of that entirely. So 5 or 6 tick from here seems to work, even though it's kind of gimmicky, but you can do that. Now this is this transition has a couple names. Some people call it green transition, obviously because it's green. Some people call it cliff 1 to cliff 2, like C1 to C2. I prefer to call it that. It's relatively short. It has a bunch of paint ups is the main thing. So for your Z1s, face 135, semi-head hitter, get your 1 tick strafe, right? And if you're still jamming paint ups, make sure you're using semi-head hitter at this point because you don't want to get head hitter and then something like that to happen, right? That's the main issue with jamming paint ups is if you accidentally get head hitter, then you just get so much speed. And then obviously for your X-facing ones, you're going to do, what would the angle be on this one? I think it would be 143 would be the angle. that's the angle I would recommend for semi-head hitter, because it guarantees that no matter what turn or strafe you get, as long as you don't do something like that where you're just like so completely out of the park. I would recommend facing 143. And the other angle would be 37 if it's the other axis. For this, you can do one shift tap or you can do no shift taps. It's just a 2-tick setup. It's just like the one we saw in Ferris. And then you have another X facing one. So this one, it's 143. You can do the paint up here, but you can also just skip this. So there's not really any reason to do the paint up. And then just find a force momentum setup here that you don't have to turn or anything, just so that you don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to do any turns or anything. And then you're guaranteed, I guess, pre-sky, because there is a pre-sky on this map. Pre-sky just means that it's part of sky, but it's just like an earlier part that feels like separate or distinct from it, I guess. So let's jam this. For this, you can do head hitter, or you can use run back, or you can use the setup I mentioned earlier, which was 0.09, face 5, 3 shift taps, and then 3 to 5 tick. All those will work. Just force momentum this. For this, you can just 4 tick from the back. There's not really much optimization you can do there. If you like pain force momentum, I think you can. I guess you would have to do a tap. Maybe you can do something. If you know pain force momentum, you can find a setup there as well. This is kind of just a cross Neo, but the awkward thing is that the ladder's in the way. If you want, you can even semi-head hitter this. It's just like kind of precise. You can head hitter and grab the ladder. You can also do X.2 face, I guess face more outward this time. So like one, you might have to back up a bit more. Maybe 0.18, face 120, and then it's 1 or 2 tick, both work. Or if you're crazy, you can still do force momentum here. For this, you can head hitter normally, just face out enough. I think this is one of those setups where you can do some of these new gen strategies though. Yeah, you can do something like this if you really want to avoid the tick. Because you can, if you get head hitter, for example, then you can stop yourself. Let's see. Yeah, something like that, and then you can stop yourself. So if you do 0.46 up against this wall, face 70 and J, that's your new gen strategy. That's what we call them. For this, just find jam coordinates that land in the water. Nothing too much there. This jump's kind of tricky just because you need to get a bunch of height. If you don't get enough height, you're gonna fall through, of course. I would say start facing like roughly this direction and then do like a smooth turn in. And then if you find like partway through like, oh, I just did a bad timing, like I'm not getting enough height, then you can just stop yourself, right? It's mostly the reaction time thing of like, oh, does this look like it's gonna work, basically, and you just have to get a feel for that. Right, all right, this one's face 37, semi-head hitter. For this, you can face 108, or sorry, I think it's 110. It might be 110. And force momentum, yeah, there you go. And then this does no turn for like several strafe timings, but I prefer to also turn in just so that I make sure that I get enough distance no matter what I do, because it's just better, basically. So you can use that. Remember that this is an X corner, but the landing corner is Z facing. So you can either land on top of the ladder, which I would probably recommend. I think it's from 0.0. 0.0. And you do jump jam. If you get A7, then you're going to get too much speed. So if you notice midway through that you got A7, then just turn in more so you can slow down. But I would say 0.0 jam, and then land on and then turn in to stop yourself. Alternatively, you could do one shift tap back, A7 with like a 3 tick strafe, or I would probably recommend instead of that probably do like head hitter, facing like 97, 98-ish with some sort of 3 tick strafe would probably be good. Just jam this. For this, it kind of looks like you have to head hitter just because there's a ceiling here, but you don't. If you go to 0.85-ish, because the edge of the stair is 0.8, so we're just backing up to 0.85 just so that we can still jump. You can still just jam this or head hitter, right? So it's multi-tick. So do 0.85 and jam there. For this, just do Pessi. For this, you want to chain it because it's hard to get enough distance off the soul sand alone. Go to like, I think it's face 60 and then do like a, let's see. Okay, that actually overshoots. Maybe 58, do an unshift tap. Yeah, 58, do an unshift tap, and then I like to turn in. And you can get basically any force momentum timing that's like reasonably fast, and it'll still make that. So you can do that there, and then jump here. But if you fall here, you can still jump back, so you're fine if you mess that up. All right, now we are officially, in a second here, this red part is called pre-sky. And you can tell it's not sky because it's like a different color, I guess, right? So we're on to pre-sky. This part's relatively easy. Go around the left-hand side of this because that's the Z-facing one, whereas if you go around this one, it's X-facing, but it's easy jump. X-facing, do 2 shift taps back, semi-head hitter, Z-facing, just go up to the corner. Be careful here because I know you can like slide off by hitting that ceiling if you're not careful. So just be mindful of that. Oh, also make sure you're doing, because I just underjumped, make sure you're doing 2 shift taps, just that you're getting like an optimal tap setup there. 2 shift taps back, semi-head hitter. There's actually a skip here, which is pretty nice. So go to, this here is the intended route, just semi-head hitter this. But then you don't have to continue going that way. There's actually a skip. There doesn't skip much, but if you go here, and here, and here, and then do your 3 shift taps if you want to, just to be safe. And then it skips to sky, and then you don't have to do some of that weird ice stuff over there. And now you're on the final stretch before the end of the map. So this water's not too bad. The main thing is the pain ups later on. I mean, these head ones, it's, make sure that you are comfortable with semi-head hitter, I guess. Just pay a lot of attention to your basic timings there. Let's see, make sure I guess for this you can like back up and then force momentum. Just make sure if you get max force momentum, it's gonna overshoot that pain. So just do something slower than that and that'll be fine. So basically any time that isn't max force momentum, like the 1 tick force momentum, the fastest one, as long as you don't do that, you're fine. Just stop in this water and then swim over this one, back up, and then make sure you're facing slightly outward, and then run. But you want to be careful because I'm testing this in practice mode. I see like I clip the corner, so maybe I need to shift slightly rightward first before I go. But now I'm facing too much outward. There you go. So, and then from here you can do like 4 to 6 tick, I think. And then stop in the water and then just come out. For this, you're gonna do a late strafe with some facing outward. It's relatively lenient. The main thing is that because the sky is X-facing this pane, you don't want to do something too early and then hit the pane, because especially when you're nervous, that's like particularly hard. So just make sure you're like past the pane entirely before you start strafing there. For this is 6 block momentum, but you have to remember there's a ladder here. So 2 pixels, that means you should do 2 shift taps and then jam. For X facing, remember you're gonna do 143 semi-head hitter, because that's the angle that's not gonna hit the wall, right? Because if I do something more inward, then there are cases where I can still hit the wall, right? And then for Z facing, do about 45 degrees. For this, there are a lot of people end up using the full 7 blocks. There's actually barriers like in between all of this. So the strategy I'm gonna recommend is gonna like take advantage of that. You're gonna go to, and then you could flip this if you wanted to go on the other side. You're gonna go to 0.32, face, I think 84. Is that right? Yeah, 84. And then you can do, I think, 3 or 4 different strafe timings. They all land without turning, right? So that's all you have to do here. This one's a little spooky because you just don't have a lot of momentum, and it's hard to like get enough outward movement. So you are gonna aim for a late strafe. Let's see if I can get good coordinates here. Something like, it's probably bad. Yeah, something like this. Was that 0.42 face 123? And you're gonna get that late strafe and turn in, and then you can get anywhere between 3 and 5 tick, but you want to aim for 4 or 5 tick because 3 tick kind of sucks there. And then just emphasis on the late strafe, otherwise you're gonna hit this pane, right? But if you wanted to get an earlier strafe timing, you could face out more. For example, this would work for something like that. It's just for some of the earlier timings, like if you got 4 tick, it's still gonna hit the pane if you're not careful. So you can face out more if you prefer an earlier strafe. And then we have the last jump. This one's actually pretty easy, although it feels kind of scary. Do something like, let's see if I can get, I'm getting inertia. Let's see. There you go. So if you do 0.0 face 86, then just make sure you don't do max force momentum, because if you remember, max force momentum is going to overjump that pane. But if you do any slower timing besides like the instant force momentum, you'll jump, and then you're going to strafe basically any time after jumping and turn in. If you remember, this second corner is Z-facing, so it's like lenient, but also don't think that you have to like take this tight, because you do have 2 panes that you can land on. So it's not like you have to land on this pane in particular. You can land anywhere out here and it's still fine, right? And then the other thing is that this strategy will basically land like, you know, a 1.5 blocks higher than you need to be. So you really don't have to worry too much about getting the like exact timing that you need. So anything within the general vicinity of strafing sometime after jumping is good. And then yeah, that's XI. It's all of XI. So we'll cover XII in the next video. These ranks are getting like especially long from this rank on. This that last one, the one we just did was, I mean, it was long, but it's not nearly as long as the ranks start to get. So they're all going to be in separate episodes now. So that's all, and I'll see you in the next one.